good afternoon. I'm Ravi, and I'm going to be talking about some of the initiatives which we are taking in water in India and how we are looking at these particular initiatives. To start with, I'll tell you the story behind the opportunity, what we looked at, and how the whole thought came about. Talk a little bit about the facts and the trends which are present in India, and see where we are going and what's happening out here. What are the ground realities? I think we need to really assess these also, where there may be some facts and there may be some trends, but what's happening on ground, and that's where what we're going to be looking at also, and I'll touch upon that also. And what are the pain points which the consumers or people are facing with respect to water? And that becomes really important, because unless we address those, we cannot do anything about water and not get them water across or change their habits of using water. And lastly, I'll talk about scientific precision, what we are doing as a company, and what is our approach and how we are developing our supply chains and products, and which markets are we currently addressing and why. We'll summarize what's really going on. So to begin with, I live in this beautiful city of Mumbai, which has got a similar geography as the Bay Area. It's got a north side of the bay and the south side of the bay. The only difference being that Mumbai is on the north side and the south side of the bay is now getting to be really popular. So it all started with the south side, going to south side. My father used to sail, and he used to take me across the harbor every weekend since I was a child. And there was a very sleepy hamlet of some fishing villages around this cove out here. And we fast forward a few years, 20 years ahead, and we find that this whole area became the hotbed for the new residential and real estate activity. So once I was, like everybody else in Mumbai, says that I'd like to have a home out there. So my wife and I decided we want to make a home out here. So we were completing our home in this area somewhere. And at the last leg, we decided to go there to see that it's getting done or not getting done. And one of our friends had a house. He said, come and stay with us for the weekend and check out what's happening. So we were just getting off the slipway out here, and I overheard somebody talking on his cell phone, saying, where are you going? He says, I'm going to this really nice place called Alibag. And I said, what is Alibag? I said, well, you don't know Alibag, you're from Mumbai. He says, no, I've been there 20 years ago. I don't know what's Alibag. And I'm overhearing this conversation. He says, it's called the Hamptons of Mumbai. And I said, wow, I feel quite privileged. I'm going to the Hamptons, and I got a place in the Hamptons of Mumbai, so which was a sleepy fishing village, really enjoyable. So I said, that sounds really great. So we go across and spend the night at a friend's house, and the friend says, Ravi, we got this lovely house. You know, my architect was great, my interior decorator was great. I said, that's awesome, you know, looks nice, and we'll have a good time. He says, there's only one problem. I said, what's the issue? I said, if you want to use the restroom at night, what you need to do is you'll have to wait 3 minutes before you can press the switch and open the tap or flush the cistern. I said, wow, why 3 minutes? You see, what happens is we don't have enough power. So we've got a genset out here. And when we have a genset, we need to run our water system on the genset. And I said, so why do you need a genset to run a water system? He says, well, it's the state-of-the-art water system. And I said, what do you mean by that? He says, it gives me the same pressure what we get in Mumbai. It gives me, that's it, you know, I get a great shower. And, you know, the flush valves work. I said, so what's the power it takes? He says, oh, it's 7.5 HP, really high power system. And that really bothered me. I said, you're living in the Hamptons of Mumbai. You don't have running water. You don't have electricity. And every time you need to get on, you need to switch on the genset. I think this is something wrong out here. And it bothered me a lot. So I stayed up the night and worked out certain numbers. Just came back to my years of chemical engineering at Wisconsin, my junior year, first semester, transport phenomena. And I realized that I can do the same job in 1 HP or less. And that's what the whole thing started with. What I did with my house was, I built my house, I implemented a system which is running on 1 HP, and It took me 4.5 months to get it done. The reason to get it done, it took so long to get it done was I was involving local people, taught them how to do plumbing, how to do the lines, and put my system in place. It is working beautifully now, and the most gratifying part is I've been able to integrate that completely with solar energy. So in essence, I have completely gone off the grid or taking any resources from the government or the local governing bodies. So this was the beginning of this particular story, and that led from one thing into the other. And I started after that really digging into the data about water in India. And digging data about water in India is like peeling an onion. It's got layers after layers. But what happens is once you pull out the layers, you start crying. The more layers you pull out, more crying you have. And that's what really happened. And I'll just share some data with you. India consumes a huge amount of water, 1.7 trillion liters of water per day. That's a no-brainer because we have 1.2 billion people, almost 1/6 of the world's population. We are obviously going to consume a lot of water. What's interesting is about 83% of this goes for agriculture, 10 for industry, 4 for domestic use, and 3 for the power sector. And what we find is the 83% of the water is subsidized by the balance 17% of the water. Agricultural water is almost free. And that has been one of the largest bane of the country. As a result, the resource is just not valued well enough. How is the water replenished in India? It's replenished fairly regularly by a 4 to 5 month monsoon. And in some southern states and eastern states, there are 2 monsoons, a short monsoon in winter also replenishes the water. So our reservoirs are quite full. That's not a problem. The groundwater resource is also quite well developed, but they are being consumed at a far greater rate than being replenished. What's happening is 70% of the Indian mass is highly impervious, and as a result, the monsoon rains don't go into the ground. They normally run off, and the rate at which it is being depleted because of the policy with power and agriculture is so fast that it's like mining water. And the amount of water we have mined in the last 30 years has dropped the groundwater levels by almost 150 to 200 feet, depending on the region. And the worst of all, the investment in water sector is at a very dismal rate than what it is needed. This is because of poor vision and planning. There are lots of agencies involved. Typically, there's a central government agency, a state government agency, and a local body which is involved. And that causes a real mess. And the execution is very poor with inflated costs and corruption in this area. Also, what's happening is the political view overtakes everything else. And as a result, government announces large projects, but does not see through the projects as to how they are going to be ending up. And fortunately, in the next 12th five-year plan of India, that has been addressed quite well. In particular, I looked at some of the aspects and numbers of the domestic water infrastructure. And what we found was something very interesting. And that was a large opportunity. For example, no city in India has got 24/7 piped water. Mumbai, which is the financial capital also, does not have piped water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. India has got about 330 million homes as per the last census. Only about 43% of these have piped water. And that also, whether water runs in pipe or not, it's anybody's guess. And this happens even in areas which are very close, or now what we call a part of Mumbai. The suburbs on the western side or the eastern sides, they may have pipe, but water may or may not be running. About 58% of the homes have got bathing facilities with them. Otherwise, people in the rural areas do go down to the river and bathe out there or the lakes. 47% of the homes have latrine facilities, which is really appalling because that does not allow any kind of social development or anything. But the most concerning fact is that only 30% of the domestic wastewater is treated and discharged. This is extremely inadequate. What has happened as a result of it is, especially in the northern areas, is rivers are dead now. They're choked up with plastic, they're choked up with sewage, and lots of biological contamination has happened in these areas. And the reality of that is more than 600,000 children die every year due to illnesses which are related to water, mainly dysentery. And this is the second largest cause of death anywhere in India. So what it tells me is that supply of water and sanitation go hand in hand. And this also has been addressed in the 12th five-year plan in India, where they say that when you consider water, sanitation also needs to be considered because water is an integral part of sanitation. Now, if you look at the ground realities, what is happening out here? One of the things which happens is water theft. These cities are growing very rapidly. Mumbai has a population of 18 million people and increasing. And as a result, about 60 to 70% of the people live in slums. So water theft is very rampant. And people, they say that what else would people do? They cannot get water. They just go tap the large pipes somehow or the other, collect water for their homes, for their bathing, and take it. Water is supplied through tankers. These are run by either government or private agencies, but this is the kind of scenes which are very common in some of the outskirts of the city, where you have large tankers coming and getting the water out. This kind of a mad rush, what's happening out here. And wherever there is pipe water, you have large lines and people waiting for pipe water to come. As a result, typically in the semi-urban sector or rural sector, a housewife spends about 4 to 6 hours a day just trying to get water, which is really appalling because the amount of man hours you've wasted, amount of useful time you've wasted is incredible. If you quickly look at the growth and investment in the water sector, what is expected is that in the next 10 to 12 years, the consumption for domestic and industrial use will grow at about 250%, which is a pretty significant growth out here. Investments were estimated about $3.6 billion in 2010 and 9% from the private sector. This is a dismal investment. Really speaking, some of the numbers show that investment requirements are to the tune of about $100 billion in this area, but they're not happening because of government policies. Government is trying to encourage public and private partnerships, but it has not been successful. A case in point is there's a town of Latur which was hit by, that's about 300 miles southeast of Mumbai, and it was hit by a large earthquake a few years ago, and it got completely destroyed. So they wanted to build a private-public partnership to supply water to the town. The private partner did come in, but then the partner went away because they could not collect the money, and government did not facilitate collecting the money, so there were no returns left for them. And legislation is not effective, as I mentioned earlier, because of the multiple agencies which are involved out here. There are 3, 4, 5 agencies, and as a result, you really can't figure out what's happening where. And I think the most important part is, and this I feel is very important, that water supply and sanitation are interrelated. If you don't have water, sanitation levels are really poor, and that leads to a lot of social and economical problems. The 12th five-year plan has addressed this issue. And at this stage, I would like to thank Dr. Mihir Shah, who is one of the members of the Planning Commission and who has really influenced a lot of my thinking in this area. With these, what I would like to look at is what is the current economic and social scenario in India. And we have to address this going forward, otherwise we will be in problem. The first is that we have one of the largest growing population of youth. More importantly, it is educated and it is exposed to the world through internet. So even if you go in the villages, you will say that they want something, they want this car, they want these clothes, they want these fashions. You can really see that. And internet and mobile telephony has really brought that about. This young population is highly aspirational. They certainly want a better lives than their parents had. They want certainly more amenities than their parents had. And they're ready for taking it on. We got reasonable technical skills, but the basic skills are disappearing really fast. And what I mean by basic skills are the skills of masons, plumbers, electricians, etc., carpenters. They are disappearing very fast. People are getting aspirational. They want office jobs. So they want to move away from doing these basic skills into offices, AC offices, and desk jobs. The income levels are rising quite fast, and people are willing to spend now. It was not like what was 15 or 20 years ago where people were skeptical about spending. And importantly, this is one of the largest assets we have, is a great entrepreneurial drive at every level, starting from the small guy who's fixing your mobiles to a cooperative of women who are making one of the local savory things called papads, which is one of the largest cooperatives in the world today. All such things. So there is a huge entrepreneurial energy in the country. And the last thing, which is getting very central, is a deep penetration of mobile telephony. This was the biggest communication revolution we went through, and we skipped the whole generation of landlines and just moved to mobiles. The other thing which is happening is because these economic corridors of large cities are growing, migration is happening from rural areas. And what a lot of the trends are predicting is that the economic corridors will start growing where there will be migration, like the corridors between Mumbai and Delhi, or Mumbai and Pune, Mumbai and Nasik. These are industrial cities around Bombay, about 200 kilometers away from Mumbai. Those will be growing quite rapidly, those corridors. And as a result, the cost of labor in the urban areas and semi-urban areas is also going to be increasing dramatically. So there are lots of opportunities, if you look at, to make a difference. We peel the onion, let's caramelize them and have them. That's what I say. And what we look at is, if you look at these opportunities, we have to address a massive gap in basic economic and social development. And I've listed out 3 areas out here. One is water and sanitation. Power is also in the similar case. Healthcare is also in the similar situation. And 1 or 2 other areas are housing. Housing is, again, a similar problem which we are having out here. If we can provide a sustainable free market solution, address the evolving needs and trends, and empower people with a choice, and create meaningful jobs, that's where the opportunity lies. If we do not address this, not address the social issues, we are going to be in trouble in the coming years. So looking at these large gaps, I just wanted to touch up a little bit upon as to how the current issues of water and sanitation are addressed in currently. What we look at is very poorly engineered, at best rule of thumb kind of technologies at the ground level. These technologies are executed through what we call the unorganized sector. So, for example, the municipal bodies would find a team of contractors or laborers who would come and execute it without proper training, proper understanding of such things. And as a result, we get what we call the jugaad solution. Jugaad is a very Indian word which really translates into a makeshift solution. And as a result, we don't get into the depth of engineering issues which are involved with simple things like piping or laying of pipes and stresses and such things. And we don't learn from that. And this has led to a lot of issues. The most important being the cost becomes high. All these are infrastructure related issues, and as a result, the cost becomes important, and you have to have them working for a number of years. If that needs to happen, your engineering and designs have to be very strong, which is not happening. Poor efficiencies. There is huge amount of wastages and leakages which are happening. There is excess consumption, and some of the numbers I'll show you, and what I touched upon, that instead of 1 HP, people were running their systems with 7.5 HP. Also, on cutting corners, you get a lot of undersized equipment and leaky pipe networks. And as a result, there are lots of losses out there. Contamination arising because of the leaks. And it requires frequent maintenance. So you're digging off the roads, repacking the roads. It does disturb that. And what has happened as a result of it, there is indiscriminate water mining, which is happening. And your borewell levels or groundwater levels are dropping quite rapidly. So how do we address these kind of pain points? So what we thought about is, can drinkable water be provided in every tap at a comparable or lower than reasonable government charges? Now, lower or reasonable government charges is an oxymoron. It's government giving reasonable charges is never going to work out. So what we have done is, we are trying to look at a number of local bodies which provide water, and there are lots of them in India, and see what are the prices at which they're providing water. And we are considering whether we can provide water at the same charge or lower charge than that. And want to try and eliminate the subsidy part, but even after considering subsidy, if we can do that, then we are doing really well. The other important point from the environment as well as economic perspective is whether this can be a sustainable initiative. I think sustainability has become an integral part of any of these infrastructure related issues. If you don't address them right now, I think within the next couple of years, the whole endeavor is going to be defunct altogether. And importantly, we have to involve the stakeholders, which are local, because it creates meaningful jobs, it creates an ecosystem within out there, and gives a better livelihood to people who are in the rural area, as well as it serves as an area where we can decimate skills and move to higher skills. So the progression to various higher value chains is also possible if we decimate the skills down the road out here. Thus, our strategic intent is that we want to provide drinkable water in every tap with local participation and in a sustainable manner. What it means to us is that we need to offer an alternative where consumers have a choice to use, replenish and control water without depending on government. It empowers people. And that's what we want to look at. So where do the opportunities lie to meet these requirements? And for these things, we mapped out the complete water cycle, what we have here. So it starts with water resource management. What it means is either surface water, subsurface water, or groundwater. Once we extract the water treatment part also we can look at. The water distribution through piping networks and pumping networks. The use management. What are the kind of water budgets we have? Where do we use it? And is there a way we can optimize the use of water? Water recycle. Water recycle is going to grow really important, and it forms as a part of the safe discharge also, as well as recycling water. Even the grey water which is used for recycling for agriculture purposes, such things would be very important to look at. And the last section is what we call water replenishment. We are getting a 5-month monsoon. Can't we use that water to scientifically replenish our aquifers or groundwater? So what we arrived at is that the key to making this successful is that we need to understand each step extremely well, what is happening, and understand the science and engineering behind it, and execute each step very well using the local talent. If we can do this well, I think we are on a good path. So this started with my company called Scientific Precision Private Limited. And in its new avatar, we started the whole issue on water and food in 2009. And what we looked at first was mainly to do with the services related to water and food. My ultimate aim was to get into products which were related to either food or water. And I took an early bet as to which these two sectors are growing sectors and they are required, and whether water would move faster or food. And we find out that water is moving much faster than the food sector. So we got into the testing and analysis, mapping of water resources, profiling of water resources, and initially started consulting on water resources. So this is our pathway to getting into the products out here. What it allowed us to do is gain a lot of insight into the whole business. And as a result, we have currently come up with about 3 or 4 products, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. One is called um the Aqua Home, which is an automated water supply system which purifies and supplies water under pressure, water harvesting products and solutions, water recycle solutions, and we also touched a little bit upon the solar energy, mainly to drive our systems out here. And what I want to touch upon a little bit is the process. What we use is we did about, till now, we must have done about 3,000 analysis of water from various areas and various geographies. So we gathered a lot of data and converted that into good information, developed a knowledge bank of water and water resources, and gained some insights as to how these things are replenished, how these things are used. And based on that, we have developed the solutions, which are mainly through products out here. So whenever we get a project, our typical approach involves we go and assess the needs, what is happening, and what is required at that level. Next obvious step is to check the water quality and the availability of power, because without that we cannot do anything. And then we develop water budgets and consumption profiles. And also now I need to add out here is the harvesting potential using the infrastructure which people have. And then we provide sustainable solutions through our products, mainly a combination products or a combination of products out here. Sorry. How do we scale these things? So one of the main important points is we have to provide solutions through products or combination of products. So if I was to, just as an example or just as a thought experiment, if I was to replenish 50% of the 330 million houses, I cannot customize them. I need to have a product. So the solutions have to be productized, and we have to use these products to scale them. We also need to develop supply chains which work across geographies and require simple training in customer orientation, multiple skills such as electricians, mechanical assembly, fabrications. This is very important because India is a combination of 26 states which have very different characteristics across them. And if I have to scale them and supply my systems across board, then I need to develop local talent, I need to work across geographies, and I need to scale across there. And that's where the local participation becomes really important, because then the acceptance levels of the systems also become quite high, and they become our best ambassadors. And what we can do as we grow in geographies, we can involve low-cost assembly and quality assurance stations. So we can design at a central headquarters and ship it out to be assembled at site or near the site, tested it out, and then installed at these places. Involving local talent is very important because they are our best ambassadors. And I think creating jobs and disseminating skills at that level is very crucial for any kind of social and economic progress, and avoid any kind of problems in terms of social unrest. And the last thing is we need to be very nimble. The feedback loops and the feedback sessions need to be very, very efficient. And that's what I think is one of the very important things, because that feeds into the process, and as a result, it helps us improvise very quickly as well as build competitive barriers. So if I look at our company SPPL, we have designed our supply chain with approximately 5 steps out here. The initial step is the design, which gets done in Mumbai at our office, and it gets done through participation with the local universities and involving young engineers. Local universities have got a lot of talent. They've got quite a bit of funding from the government, and they are very willing to participate with the smaller companies, because that also gives them visibility. It's a part in which they get funding. And what we find especially good is the local universities are really good at process intensification. What it means is economizing, improving the efficiencies of process, and working on concepts which are present and how they can make systems which are much more compact. The manufacturing is completely outsourced. And what we do out here is we use the existing capacity of manufacturing. Mainly, this is to do a lot with metalwork and fabrication, which is there's a lot of latent capacity available. It's nothing high tech because everything is designed so that it gets done very easily. So it's fully outsourced. The assembly and quality assurance is completely within our control because this is very necessary for customer satisfaction. And in the long run, we have to have a very long life because this is an infrastructure product. So this is one step it needs to be with us and directly controlled by us. The sales and marketing, these are new channels which we are evolving. What we have seen is that marketing happens at our end in Mumbai, where most of the decision makers or decision influencers reside. So it's best to have it out here. And the sales part happens a little bit on the rural side that we have just started, but also mostly is happening in Mumbai right now. And field services such as installation, any kind of support, any kind of maintenance, all happens through local talent in that particular geography. So we go and train the people in their language, teach them what we need to do, and move it. And the important point is that our main job is to set the values and the culture of the organization, develop and manage all the processes out here because we need to be process driven. I can't have a geography in Eastern India and Southern India doing different things in a different way. And otherwise, the quality and the life of the product will be compromised. Training and feedback is very important. If you find anything good, which we have heard from the field, anything, things which work or which don't work, it needs to get across the value chain completely and communicated very clearly and easily with an action plan. If that happens, we are in very good shape. So I've kind of summarized the supply chain attributes out here and stated some of the skills what we need out here. For design, we look at some science and engineering skills, but what I find the main thing is the passion for it. If you're interested and you're passionate about it, it works very well. Procurement and manufacturing, those are pretty standard skills. Those are easily available. For assembly, I normally try and recruit people who have worked in the field because then they understand what are the problems and they can give input into that. For marketing and sales, we want young multidisciplinary skills with good communication skills. And I mean by communication skills is even in local languages, you should be able to communicate well because that builds confidence and interests people immediately out here. Seeking constant feedback is extremely important. Without that, it doesn't seem to be working too well for us. And that's why we really focus a lot on that. And we say that we need to innovate constantly, not just in the design and products, but more importantly in the customer interaction and communication, field services, and how we deliver the product, and understanding the hidden needs and concerns of our consumer. If we address that, that becomes a very, very important point. And that only happens if you can communicate with them very effectively. So we've got a number of products out here, starting with something called Aqua Well, which extracts water out of ground or open well or bore well. Aqua Home, which has small systems which provides pressurized, filtered and disinfected water to houses. Aqua Garden, this we started with somebody asking whether I could irrigate my garden and whether I could irrigate my orchard. So we came up with a system out here which has got some really nice features out here, which would be rolled out later on for irrigation as and when we get there. Aqua Soft, which is a softening system, and this is getting to be more and more necessary because of the water quality deteriorating over years. And some solar energy and power storage solutions, mainly to support our systems. The last one which we have worked with and we are partially there is something called Aqua Harvest for harvesting the rainwater and replenishing our wells. So I'll talk briefly about Aqua Home, which is our flagship system. So what it comes out is basically on a chassis. It's 1.2 meters by 1.7 meters. 1,000 gallons per hour system, which is adequate for about 3 to 4 houses, 3 to 4 room house running all the showers simultaneously, works very well with 1 HP of power. This can be integrated fully with solar energy, and it provides water on demand. This water quality is drinkable provided your water chemistry is right. And installation time for this systems is about 30 minutes. You bring in the system, you connect your water lines in and out, and plug in the power, it starts. AquaSoft is our water softening systems, and here we have the technology to give you soft water from anywhere from a few hundred to 1,000 liters to almost million liters. And depending on the scale, we use various technology like lime softening or ion exchange resin-based systems. Uh, it gives you great bathing experience, the frothing, all such things happen. And surprisingly, I've been getting inquiries from really remote areas where they want that, especially for small resorts and hotels. They said the customers are really complaining. So we are trying to get into those areas out here. The other one is Aqua Garden. This started as a project for a rather wealthy client where he says, I want my whole orchard to be watering with automation because my caretaker doesn't seem to be watering it. And it has evolved into a very interesting product. What we do is we connect this to the drip irrigation system, and we can provide water as well as fertigation to the plants through this. And one of the systems which is getting commissioned right now is fully automated, where there is no intervention required even to draw water from the well into the storage tank. And this is another very interesting product we came across called Aqua Recycle. And this is specifically designed for auto garages. Automobile sector has seen quite a bit of penetration, deep penetration in the Indian market. And what's happening now is auto garages are springing up everywhere. Dealerships are doing a lot of maintenance jobs. And the government and local bodies, pollution bodies, are becoming quite stringent. So people want some systems where they can recycle the oil and dust-laden waters and remove them and recycle that water for at least car washing. So we've been providing these systems to recycle the car wash water. What we learned earlier on was our systems needed to work in places where the power was of very poor quality and sometimes not available for a few days together. So we developed a solar solution for this called Power Solar, where at least up to 2 to 3 HP power load, we can run it completely on solar energy. So what are the key milestones which we have got? What we have had here is we have seen reduction in power starting with 3-phase motors, 5 HP to 7 HP, down to a single-phase motor running at 1 HP, which is very necessary for semi-urban or rural areas, because as soon as you get out 30 kilometers away from larger cities, you start running into these kind of problems. Reduction in footprint. Initially, my systems were about 3 meters by 4 meters in area, which are now down to about 1.2 meters by 1.7 meters. And what we are looking at is even making the footprint smaller and making all-weather modules where you don't require a room to store them. You can keep them in open, rain, shine, anything of that. The installation times. Normally, the first system took me 4 to 5 months to install them properly. Now, we make the systems, we bring it in and install them in half an hour. That's really convenient. Our target time is 5 minutes. My connections and such things should be so fast that the person should not even feel that it has come and done that. And the important part is full integration with solar energy, which is really a good thing which we have done out here. The kind of business what we have got is because I think our practical down-to-earth approach. And this was taught to me by my Kaizen guru, Dr. Gondalekar. He says, you have a problem, you just go down to the site, go to Gemba. Don't shy away from that. So initially, we restricted ourselves to geographies around Mumbai. Any small problem, one of us would be there just to look at the whole thing and understand what was really happening technically. And that has helped us eliminate a lot of the issues. Constantly innovate in all aspects. I just don't say from the product or design point of view, but the customer interaction, mainly addressing the hidden needs, what they have. And then a lot of things evolve out of it. For example, what we found is when you have the purified water with chlorine or chlorine source, the sanitation levels in bathrooms also improve. We did that with swab tests and we found that the sanitation levels improve. So cleaning requirements also go down. So there are indirect benefits like that which really help us. The other thing we always feel is involve local stakeholders because they got a good knowledge of what's happening locally. And as a result, it works well. But you have to train them with your way of working. And they are easily amenable to that because their minds are quite fresh and not corrupted by any other things. This last mile ecosystem is your face with the customer. So you have to be very strong at developing it very well. Internalize and communicate the learnings across the supply chain very fast so that everybody is at par and everybody is aligned with what we are doing. And strong emphasis on systems, processes, and quality assurance. Quality, we just do not like to compromise on anything. It takes a bit of time. It involves a bit of working capital for us to stock some of the parts. But we do that because I think in the long run, that is what is going to separate us out from the others. And I think the other important part which comes out is working with semi-organized or fragmented markets. Now, India has got very, very many semi-organized sectors and the markets are highly fragmented. So reaching them and working with them becomes an issue. So for example, in one of the areas what we have right now is some of the guys are working on drip irrigation. We have to work with them so that they can be ambassadors of our systems and learn to work with them. Whereas the other people are, some of them are local contractors who want to try and muscle their ways in. Work with them properly, they also become your ambassadors. So we have to learn to work with all such cultural issues and such things. And a couple of segments what we have served right now are semi-urban homes, which are away from major cities. We are not focused on cities on purpose because working in cities is far more difficult than working on these things. Until we build up some more scale, we would like to look at this. And institutions like small resorts, which are like 10-room, 20-room resorts in semi-urban areas, which are used for tourism. Those are the areas where we have worked. This is a small market right now, about $30 to $50 million market, but growing quite rapidly at about 20%, 18 to 20% a year. And this is a sector which is only going to grow because the affluence levels are increasing very rapidly. And as a result, people are aspirational. They want second homes. That's where it's going to grow. The other one we have looked at is automobile segment because the penetration of this segment is quite deep in India. And as a result, the need for car wash water to be recycled is going to only increase. So it's going to be good to be in this sector. And of course, the other one coming up is the hospitality sector and small townships where we have, say, 50 to 100 houses in a community or a gated community. Those kind of townships are coming up everywhere in the whole of India. In summary, what I'd like to mention is that there is a massive supply-demand gap existing in the essential services and infrastructure in most of the sectors in India. To name a few, these are water and sanitation, power, healthcare, real estate, and housing. Water and sanitation are very basic for any kind of social or economic development of the country. If you don't have them, there is a huge loss in terms of the man hours wasted, the economic losses what we have had. And the challenge for us is to bring this supply-demand gap through sustainable solutions, evolving the last mile ecosystems where you involve the local people and create meaningful jobs. And we have to partner with the local communities. This new paradigm of supply chain and distribution for fragment is especially true for fragmented and unorganized sectors in India. And it it gives you a sustainable and affordable solution across geographies. It creates meaningful choices. You have a choice away from government now and empowers people with a choice, which is very important for any kind of development, and provides a channel to quickly deliver appropriate technology to solve the problems at hand. Thank you very much for your attention. I'd be very happy to take up any questions on that.
I'd like to ask the first one.
Yeah.
So I want to understand kind of the whole process of how someone would buy a system. First of all, someone says, I'm really interested in your system. Do you send people out throughout these semi-urban areas and target an area first and send
No,
people there, or what do you
no.
do?
What we have done is a little differently.
Uh-huh.
What we have seen is we have kind of scouted and looked at the areas which are growing.
Yeah.
Okay. And what we look at is who are the key decision influencers in that area who are sitting in Mumbai. So we first talk to them and introduce ourselves
Okay.
out there.
Okay.
Once that happens and he's comfortable talking to us, we send our local person to collect the information about the site in terms of whether it's water or any power requirements and such things. So what
Okay.
we do a scoping study for them. And then once
Okay,
we,
for the decision maker.
yeah,
Because, you couldn't do it for every possible single customer.
no.
Yeah, right.
So
Okay.
what happens is typically for these houses, there are decision makers, decision influencers, I would say. And those are the people we need to work there with them because these are typically what we call the mechanical or electrical agencies which are looking into that, as well as some of the architects and developers who influence the decisions.
Okay.
So we have to work with them on this particular
Okay.
part.
So Aqua Home really looks like something for one or two or three houses.
Yeah,
Are you trying to do a system where you put in one common well for groundwater for a larger group of houses and
that's
then several
yeah.
pipe it out to the?
Yeah, that also is possible. We have just implemented a system for a couple of houses, exactly what you said, about 3 houses together with about 14 rooms altogether, using a single system, basically.
Yeah, because I wanted to point that out, because on the one hand, it looks like you're a product company, but really, this is very service intensive. You really have to know the area, you have to get the
Yes.
water to the system,
Yeah.
and
And that's the reason why we went into the services part first, to understand and get an insight into this part. And
Yeah.
once you have an insight in the process setup, the whole process takes not more than 2 or 3 days to complete the scoping studies.
do you have trouble getting people out to actually do the construction? You can involve local people, but
Yeah.
you've got to have somebody from your side there, right?
See, we have got local people. We have trained them well. When the system goes out there, they know what to connect, where to connect. But what happens locally is, if a site is going on and if they have their own plumbers and such things, they say we want to do the connections, then we have to explain them sometimes.
Okay.
And that becomes a little tedious process because then the plumber has to work as per our specifications. And that's the reason we want to even simplify it further, where it's almost a no-brainer that you connect the two things and plug it in and start it out.
Okay. Just a couple of more kind of detail questions. How long have you been commercial? When did you actually start doing this?
We started, the services business was started in 2009, and the products business started about 2 years ago.
Okay.
Okay, and we've had more than about 25, 30 installations altogether.
Okay. All right.
And various geographies.
And the other thing I'd like to ask is, who else is out there doing something similar in India? Is there nobody there, or is it a crowded space?
I'll tell you, the whole systems like these are not very easily available. There are piecemeal solutions. So 3 or 4 companies together give you a piecemeal solution. And
you really need a general contractor to figure out how to.
So you have to get the probability of getting an electrician, a mason, a plumber, all those together is pretty minuscule.
Yeah.
And that's why first time we took 5 months was just because of that reason.
Okay.
And we are integrating everything together out here and giving you a very simple turnkey solution. And second thing is, most of the suppliers want to sell their equipment. They don't want to solve the problem. And that's where we really come into play. We really want to address
not being a product company, but being the service.
It's a solutions company.
Solutions company.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have to give the solutions through a product, otherwise it's very difficult to address that.
How fast do you want to grow the company?
I think for me, what is important is growing the company in a sustainable way and a profitable way.
Okay.
Yeah. That's very, very important because profits
Because with a problem like this, you could also see that this is something where, you've got hundreds of millions of people who need help right now.
Yeah. So there are 2 or 3 ways of looking at it. I could grow very, very fast, but if it is not sustainable, then we would fall flat on ground.
Okay.
And that's what we are seeing in a lot of the cases. I don't want to be on steroids.
Okay. Let's open the floor to
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Talk about your business model for ag home and ag irrigation, because water is very driven by the business model you operate on for long-term sustainability.
Can you please repeat that?
The
Yeah.
business model
Yeah.
for ag home and ag irrigation, what do you use and why is that, why will that model work for you versus, talk about that, because that's the key for water.
Why Aqua Home works? What is it?
No,
Business
agriculture home, right?
Business
Ag-
model for ag home and ag irrigation, I picked 2 of them.
Yeah. Aqua Home, the business model for Aqua Home, why it would work for me, I tell you. I think a couple of things which I said was, there are a number of things why it is working for me out here. One is we are addressing the main technological issue, which we did the first time, where we said we want less power and we want a reliable supply, okay, which nobody is able to give right now. And that we have done that. Second thing is the ease of operation and installation, which is very important and addresses the pain point out here. And what is more important to make the system work is building confidence through products which are working very well and they have a longevity out here. And if I do this particular way, the business model, what we have looked at is the designing and the supply chain, the way in which we have developed works very well is because my investment levels are low out here. I'm using the existing infrastructure which is available out here through outsourced manufacturing. And the other important point which comes in is that we are able to service through local talent. So any kind of time delays are not happening. So we have addressed these issues which are, I think, making our business model.
I think I want to clarify.
How do you get paid?
Yeah.
Yeah. How we get paid first. The first is the downright payment on the system itself, and then we are now beginning to look at the annuity based on annual maintenance contracts or monitoring systems.
I was wondering that in a related way, another way to do this would be to own the system but charge
Yeah.
a monthly fee.
Yeah,
Forever.
but there are 2 issues on that. We are kind of exploring it. One is that I require a base level usage on that or a base level fee. And once you have a base level fee, that would be kind of nice to look at it.
Okay.
And once we have a base level fee, then we can own the system, maintain it, and then charge it. That's the perfect way of doing that. And that's.
Would you be comfortable saying how much a single home system would cost?
I think I'll just hold
Okay.
that on.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in terms of the pain points, I think the pain point you explained is maybe mainly for the domestic use. And
Yeah.
I'm interested in, are there any pain points for the agricultural use or industrial use? And do you plan to expand into these segments?
Yeah, see, the pain points, I've not gone that deep into the agriculture use, but whatever I have learned about it is one of the largest pain points for agriculture use is availability of good power. And what happens as a result of it is people leave their systems on, and when the power comes, the water they just pump it out, okay? And there's an indiscriminate use because of that. So that's the use, what I've learned about with water. I've purposely not got into the depth of it because it's a highly politically motivated area. And as a result of it, you have to deal with the political bodies, which we are not interested in right now. But getting reliable power to pump water is one of the largest pain points for the agriculture sector.
Thank you. A very interesting talk. Thank you very much. I'm interested in where does the water actually come from and what kind of quality is it? What do you do about regions that have arsenic in the water and the like?
Yeah. Water normally comes from 2 sources, most of where we have operated. One is a bore well or a tube well, which can be anywhere from 60 feet depth all the way up to 300 feet. And the other source is open well, okay? We see a lot of variation in quality. If you're closer to the coast, for example, a lot of ingress of seawater also happens. And variation in quality is drastic. I'll give you a very drastic example we did just in the Alibag area where initially when we tested the water in months of November and December, the hardness level were of the order of about 240 ppm or milligrams per liter. And then we tested the water in last week of May, which is one of the toughest times, and the water table is really low just before monsoons. It shot up to about 1200 ppm. So there is a huge variation out there. And last year was incredibly bad because of the poor monsoon we had the previous year. So that's the kind of variation we have had. For arsenic, we have not come across that as yet because arsenic problem is concentrated a lot on the eastern and southeastern side of India. We are now in the position, we are negotiating one particular contract in the West Bengal region for Aqua Recycle, and I hope I get to learn a little bit more about that region. Though we have some methods of removing arsenic available with us, we have not tested them on the commercial scale.
Go ahead.
What is your cost per liter for this? And how about service? What kind of maintenance do you have to do? How frequently through the course of a year?
Yeah.
And last one, where do you see expanding out of India? Would China be obvious or Africa?
I'll answer your second question first, the maintenance part. The maintenance requirement we have minimized to a great extent by engineering it inside there. And I was just telling Professor Dasher that one of the key things which we look at is minimize the number of moving parts in the whole system. Okay. So maintenance, what we do is we always, every quarter, we send a person out just to check the health of the system. And at a later stage, we would be building in that capability in our control systems, So that would be the...
So you could do it from a central location.
Yeah. And I think with the reason I put up the mobile telephony penetration is because that network becomes really useful for it. And people are doing that kind of work in certain areas. That is one. Cost per liter is an interesting question. What currently I'm getting is approximately, and this depends on the water quality, is something at about 15 to 20 rupees a meter cube, which would translate to about 30 cents a meter cube, approximately. And it will vary depending on the quality of water. This is the purification cost. The capital cost is not included in this particular part.
And expanding outside India.
What we find expanding out of India is we got to look at something which is similar to India. And one of the nations which comes into place is something like Indonesia. Indonesia has got similar issues, especially in the interiors. And it serves a large market. It's got, I think, the fourth largest population in the world today. That's one thing. And some of the developed places in Africa probably would be the other one. I have not explored China because that's a large geography, though I would like to do that. And I would love to learn a little bit about US if that's a possibility in the hinterlands,
Bevan.
Since your water is a source that mostly come from pumped underground water, so you are just exasperating the problem of depleting the ground level. What's your plan for the future?
I think that's a really good question, what you're saying out here. One of the solutions, what we have done is something called Aqua Harvest. And what we do is we get 4 to 5 months of monsoon. So the roofs of every house acts as a catchment. And now we are working on how do we replenish this aquifers with the water which is collected from the roofs. The collection is quite large. We get about 2,400 millimeters of rain at an average, 2,000 to 2,400 millimeters of rain at an average throughout India. The problem is collecting them, channelizing it, and putting back into the ground. And I don't have a solution for how I can increase the permeation rates. And that's what I'm working with, and I'm trying to talk to people on this part. But catching the rain and letting it permeate down is happening. Besides that, I can talk a little bit about what other people are doing in terms of community-based projects within India for groundwater recharge is building a lot of check dams. What is required, as I understand, I've not gone to the depth of it, is you give time for water to percolate down into the ground. So they build check dams at a very low cost, and they fill up the aquifers. In the state of Gujarat, the water table apparently has risen a lot because of thousands of check dams coming up, for communities. And that's what has happened. though we want to get more scientific about it, we've not gotten there as yet, but that's very important for us because it completes the water cycle thoroughly. And your question, I really like that because I think that's the main point we need to address for being sustainable.
I wanted to ask about the kind of, we were talking before the session started about changing people's mindsets. What kind of resistance do you find in the market to a system like this? Is it just we've always gotten our water from the local well, or what?
I think there are a number of facets to this, and I'll talk with examples because that becomes quite evident. First of all, if you talk to a guy who's from the city or who's been educated, he'll say he will mainly focus on cost. He will not see that what benefits it is giving. But there is a progressive class of people who are really quickly and understanding the benefits. So there are a number of ways in which we can change the mindsets. One is that we say your cost is going to be low per unit over the years. The life of the unit, which becomes very much a driver for it. The other thing is they clearly see the advantages when they are doing the project or building their house or a community, that this saves time, it saves money because you don't require overhead tanks. And they clearly see a 20 to 25% cost benefit, so it's straight away jump for it, So these are the main drivers of it. For the locals, it's very interesting that if one person sees that, and what we have to do is we have to really ferment the idea with them. So let them come and have a look, give them demonstration. And if one person gets that, the second person will move much faster at that, and then it becomes quite viral. Everybody wants it, okay? So that's the kind of thing which is happening out here. And that grows very fast, and the viral effect is pretty intense. We have seen that happen with automobiles. We have seen that happen with housing. We have seen that happen with TVs and mobile telephony. Now, any rural area you go, the guy next to you has got the smartest phone available in the market because he wants that.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of time to get this rolling, but once it happens, they just want it,
Okay.
So there are 3 or 4 ways in which it happens, really.
Yeah.
What do I say?
Other questions? If we've run the route for the questions, then we can call an end to it for today and have a few refreshments outside. We've got some coffee and snacks. Thanks. Also want to remind everybody that we thank the Alan Miner Foundation for support that allows us to have these refreshments. So if you would, please join me one more time in giving Dr. Mariwala a good hand, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.